All right, this is Ryan Dunlevy recording his final project for couples and family counseling. Um, if you have uploaded my PowerPoint, you'll see that the first slide is just the introduction page, but slide 2 starts with number 1, so we'll address that first, the first bit of information there. My first couple, or the couple that I chose, was a friend of my fiance's. Jessica. She knows Jessica. They used to work together. So I interviewed Jessica and her fiance Carl. Carl's 29. He is in insurance sales, and Jessica is 27, and she is getting her doctorate in physical therapy, which is pretty rad. And we'll get a little bit into more about how that plays into what we're talking about here. Slide 2, you'll see we're continuing on structured information. They share most of the household responsibilities, the chores, the bills, etc. They really presented themselves as a joint team, which was great to see. They say they spend most of their time with one another. They both have close friends, circles of close friends, and that those circles overlap. So Carl has a group of guy friends, and then Jessica her group of girlfriends, and the two of those groups interact. And they say they make all their decisions as a unit, and I would certainly believe that. They seemed pretty stellar. Number 3, let's see, dating. They've been dating since October of 2009, and they got engaged this past April. Congratulations to them. Let's see, they recently separated. Jessica, again, for that doctorate program, she is doing her last internship or residency, and she's has to do it in a town that's about 3 hours away from the town in which the home that they share is located. They are getting married in March of 2013, which is also very exciting. Let's see, developmental information, number 4. Let's see, the goals for the two of them. I asked them, as it pertains to their issue of them being separated, what their goals are. And the goals are for the two of them to remain as a unit during Jessica's absence and to get married after Jessica's internship and graduation. Both pretty excellent goals. I'm sure that they can see both of them through. Let's see, number 5, general impressions. Carl did do most of the talking, but Jessica was pretty vocal. It was split almost, I'd say, 60-40. Carl was just more talkative. He had a little bit more to say. But they're both pretty vocal and, did a good job, sharing with one another. Let's see, they said that they make an effort to spend a lot of time together, more time with each other than without. They have regular date nights, which they both seem to enjoy. And they also make an effort to, again, hang out in those overlapping circles so that they can spend time together. They said that they do spend time apart. Obviously, they do have different hobbies. They were appropriately affectionate. Pardon me. They did hold hands. They looked at each other. When answering questions, if Carl was saying something, Jessica would look at him. Very lovingly, if you will. Let's see, number 6. Their strengths. They are great friends. They speak to each other with respect. They seem to have fun together. They enjoy each other's company. They're able to work together to solve problems. Oh, I asked them what their weaknesses were. There weren't really any, glaring weaknesses in their relationship. So I asked them what they thought their weaknesses were, and their response was typical disagreements. And so I asked them to elaborate a little bit, and it was really just sort of surface stuff, nothing that ever seemed to really get under their skin. It was really actually a joy getting to interview this couple, who I had met maybe a couple times before. And there were really no evidence of unhealthy patterns. They really just, like I said, generally seemed like a great couple. Let's see. Number 7, evaluation and self-reflection. Let's see, I learned that certainly strong couples, as I've been saying, that they've been strong. They need guidance too. They seem to have a pretty good game plan of what they were going to do during that bit of time that she'd be fulfilling that residency. But it was obvious that it was a concern to them, and they were both appreciative of the ability to have somebody to talk to about it, some neutral party, if you will. And then again, evaluation myself. I felt that I was a strong interviewer. I was direct. I was certainly comfortable with them. I was attentive. We really did well together, and I sort of fed off their vibe, which I'll get to here in a little bit. Again, continuing that evaluation and self-reflection. Um, we're similar couples in that we're both engaged. Carl and Jessica are a little bit older than Carrie and I. Carl, I believe, was 29 and Jessica 27, and Carrie and I are both 26. And they are a biracial couple. Carl's African American and Jessica is Caucasian. I would be interested in experiencing, although it was great, like I said, to meet this couple and get to work with them, it would have been interesting to work with maybe a more troubled couple. But like I said, I appreciated the experience for sure, as did they. Number 9, counselor implications. First, it was important that I made an effort to be warm and inviting with this couple. I really tried to match their levels of enthusiasm, which I think made them more comfortable, and I got a lot of really great stuff out of them. It was fun to interview them for sure. They were interracial, like I said, and while it didn't present itself as an issue, or it never came up that was ever a concern of theirs, it was important that I be sensitive and I was aware of it beforehand, in case they should have wanted to address it. And then lastly, for Carl and Jessica, it was important to have an idea of the possible points to work on after setting up the first meeting. Because I had this little bit of information and we were hooked up by a friend, through Carrie rather. I was able to have a phone conversation with them briefly to sort of schedule this all, and that's when I got the idea of the fact that they were concerned about Jessica leaving, and so that gave me something sort of something to look forward to, and I was certainly was aware of that and tried to be cognizant of it as we were having this session. And so that's all for Carl and Jessica. Again, a really great couple. Happy to have gotten to spend that time with them, interviewing them and helping them out a little bit, sort of allowing them to talk with one another and sort of figure out, express to each other, as I'm sure they had before, how they feel about this upcoming change. Let's see, for my family, I did a small family of 3. Desmond is the father. He's 50 years old and he's a business owner. He owns a local electrician's business and reports that he does pretty well for himself, which is good. He went out of his way to say so, so it was obvious that was important to him. Cheryl is 49, so just 1 year his junior. She's the mother of the family and a homemaker. And Neil is 12. He is the son. He's a rising 6th grade student, so he's about a year behind in his grade level as compared to his age. And he was adopted from the Ukraine at 18 months. Furthermore, he is a resident in the psychiatric residential treatment facility in which I work. He's not on my personal caseload. I really don't know much about him, or didn't, outside of some of the educational portion, the bits that I do for my job. So it was interesting getting to talk more with Neil and, of course, with Desmond and Cheryl, his adoptive parents. Let's see, Desmond is the clear head of the household, and that was made pretty obvious anytime you would ask questions. Both Cheryl and Neil would look at Desmond, before they would answer, and they would almost expect Desmond to go ahead and, he was like the designated answer giver. So if there were questions that I would ask directly to Cheryl or Neil, they would still look over to him at first, to, I guess, make sure that it was, that what they were saying was on point with what Desmond thought, that sort of thing. Let's see, they say they spend most of their time as a unit. Cheryl and Neil said they have a little bit more time together during the afternoon hours when Neil gets home from school and before Desmond arrives home. And they spend that time doing homework with one another, or rather doing Neil's homework together. Neil says that he also likes to spend time with neighborhood friends, and he'll do that sometimes in the evenings and weekends, of course, after homework, he says. And then Desmond is certainly the ultimate authority figure in the family, but is willing to take into account the opinions of Cheryl and Neil. He didn't seem, super authoritarian, if you will, but was definitely, they made it clear that he was the head of the household. 13, developmental information. Desmond and Cheryl have been married for over 22 years. They say they'll be celebrating their 23rd anniversary before the end of the year. Let's see, they adopted due to Cheryl's inability to bear children. That was information that they had volunteered. You'll see later that we'll get to the fact, in the counselor considerations, that I knew that Neil was adopted, and again went into the session cognizant of that, and was just very aware and careful as to what questions I asked. But she volunteered that information, which I'm glad. I was curious, but I wasn't quite comfortable with asking at this point. So I'm glad she gave me that information. Let's see, like I said before, Neil is currently in a psychiatric residential treatment facility. He was admitted in May and tentatively scheduled for discharge in September. He has a really tough time accepting no, and I feel a lot of that has to do with his parents' inability to properly structure, if you will, a consequence and reward system, if you will, for Neil. Historically they say if Neil, kicked and screamed hard enough, that he would get his way. And as he got older, it started to become more of an issue, and his outbursts would become less controllable by them. And this happened a few times. It got to the point where he destroyed some property in the home, and hence ended up in a PRTF. He was referred by the family, isn't committed or anything like that. His parents do have the ability to take him out at any time, but seem very willing to have him stay through the length of treatment. Number 14, developmental information. Their goal, as we discussed, was for Neil to complete treatment and return home, and when he returns home, he will have intensive in-home services. I spoke a little bit more with the therapist who's on this case after I met with them, and she agreed with me that a lot of Neil's recovery is going to be family counseling, and sort of helping them understand systems theory, and having the parents understand how their responses to Neil certainly trigger or feed into his negative those actions that they don't care for. Let's see, the family is very religious. They brought up their faith several times. They just when I asked them before who makes most of the decisions in the household, they were sure to bring up that all of their decisions are made under this religious context. So yeah, number 15, we're on general impressions again. Let's see, Desmond did most of the talking, with Cheryl and Neil looking at him before they answered as if to confirm they had his permission to speak. Yeah, again, that was just an interesting dynamic for sure, one that I would certainly, if we were to continue seeing one another, something I would definitely want to address and sort of delve into and see what's behind that. The family is very involved with their church. They say they attend every Sunday, and they get involved with community church events. They describe themselves as active members of the community. They really like having that church community to be a part of. It seems to do them all good, and Cheryl likes that it gives her something to do during the day. Cheryl and Neil are both very affectionate with one another. Neil would, hug on her and, rest on her, and she seemed to love it. Cheryl did. She didn't seem to mind it at all. She, very much coddles him, if you will. Cheryl would put her hand on Desmond's leg every so often, and make sure that that he knew that she was there, that sort of thing, and he didn't seem to mind it at all. But it didn't seem to mean as much to him as it did to her. She would look at him, somewhat longingly, and he didn't look disapproving or anything like that, but just their expressions were very much different. Number 16. Let's see, their strengths. They were a caring family. They did, speak very nice things of one another. They were affectionate, like I said. They identified good support systems, mainly their church community, and they are willing to work hard towards recovery. Like I said, Neil doesn't have to be in treatment, but it's a choice of the family, despite it's, it being very tough on all of them, to have him in there. Their weaknesses, again, those poor boundaries with Neil that I discussed earlier, them having trouble saying no, or backing up, with good consequences, following through with those. And again, there was just that one member was, clearly had more power in the family than not, than the others, pardon me. And then again, it is very clear that Cheryl and Neil both looked to Desmond to make any decision, but it didn't strike me as over the top. He didn't seem like he, demanded it or anything like that, at least in that session, nor was it abusive. But again, that's, like I said, that's something that if we were to have more sessions, I would definitely want to look into. 17, evaluation and self-reflection. I learned that if anything, that even smaller family units can have difficulty maintaining an appropriate balance, and that it's difficult to gather sufficient evidence of defunct systems in a single session. Like I said, they presented themselves very well. I'm sure they are, for the most part, a loving and happy family, but there are definitely some things in there that I'd like to, if we had more time, to delve into further. I felt again, that I was a strong interviewer. I was comfortable with them. I was assertive. I was attentive, but I didn't want to, push the envelope too much, and really cross any boundaries that might, cause some trouble, if you will, or offend them. This family is dissimilar from my own in several ways. This couple had adopted their only child in their late 30s and are still together, as to where my parents had all 3 of their biological children, all of us boys, bless my mother, but they had us in their late 20s, early 30s, and they were divorced sometime in their late 30s. And I currently have no children, so they're very dissimilar from my current household. And then I plan to continue working with children and families, and appreciated the opportunity to hold the family session. Like I said, I feel like I could have benefited from further sessions to delve into some of these things that I noticed, but was happy to meet with them as I could. Counselor implications. Being aware of the fact that this family had adopted was important, as its cultural distinction is very different from my own upbringing and could be a sensitive subject, so I was sure to approach the issue with caution. And then it was important to read nonverbal cues from the members of this family. As I said earlier, they said a lot, just the way that that Cheryl and Neil would look at Desmond for answers, and the way that Cheryl would again hold Desmond's put her hand on his leg and look at him somewhat longingly, and Cheryl and Neil were again very affectionate. So it was a lot of these nonverbal cues that spoke more, in my opinion, than a lot of the things that they were saying. And then finally, the family plays a lot of focus on Neil's actions when discussing their troubles, sort of making him a scapegoat. It seemed like every complaint or every issue they had came back to, well, because Neil did this and Neil did that. And so, they really could use some work on systems theory and sort of understanding how, their actions certainly affect his and vice versa. And then finally is their genogram. It's as you can see, it's just the 3 of them. I wish I had, after I had made this, I wish I had asked them about Desmond and Cheryl's parents or any close family or anything like that. But this is the only family that they mentioned, was the 3 of them, and nor, when I went back through Neil's chart, did I see anything mentioned about any other family members that were important. So that is my couple and family. Like I said, it was a great experience for sure. I was glad to have gotten the opportunity to do both. And I appreciate you guys watching, and I look forward to your responses. Thanks!